It's almost football, so we're previewing the defense and special teams. And as an homage to the old dearly departed Scotty Hazelton, it'll be quite basic. And in the spirit of Ross Ells, it'll be absolute rancid dog shit. You're listening to Can't Read, Can't Write. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Can't Read, Can't Write, the podcast that proves Spartans can talk. I'm Mike Jones, joined as always by the guy who's ready for Jonathan Kinn to win multiple games, Kevin Greck, and the guy who's ready to self-immolate over the defense, Alex Plum. Alex, it's good to have you back, buddy. It looks like your hostage station has been moved to...
And they've given me this very gay tank top to wear, which is very fetishistic of them, whoever they are.
Dumb.
Does that make us more or less likely to pay your whatever they want, whatever their demands are?
This is the question. Really, until we know what they are, it's impossible to say. But
they are allies.
They have to be. They're at least performing in that space, and performativism is at least half the battle. So we'll take that.
Fake it till you make it, right? Well, it's good to have you back. And of course, it's good to have our listeners back. Thank you, of course, everyone, to listening. And if we could ask a small favor, please share this pod with Spartans in your life. Rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get podcasts. Of course, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_pod. And check out the YouTube channel. Like, comment, do all that stuff on YouTube at Spartan_pod as well. Plum, you have the honors as someone who has been missed dearly this past week. What are we doing in this episode?
This episode, this week, we will be starting behind the green wall where football will always lead. Woo, woo, woo. We've got captains to talk about. We are going to be previewing the defense, which we're very excited about and not at all nervous about because we're only confident. It's all upside, lots of proof. These guys are going to no-fly zone. They're going to make the no-fly zone look like it's high school. So we're just going to be great, and there's nothing to worry about. And then we'll talk about special teams. We've got a little shooty hoops. We got a little women's soccer. We'll head off Grand River briefly to gloat with the clusterfuck that is the University of Michigan before finishing up with your Twitter questions.
All right, let's get into it. And let's start with previewing the defense. So, actually, I didn't add this category to the banner. Oh, we're just gonna get.
Well, that's the most important thing is banner. Look at banner, Alex.
I like banner.
We're gonna start with the captains. The captains were announced by the team, and we've got 5 of them. So this is a departure from everything in Mel Tucker era, where it was like it changed week to week, and then there was a postseason announcement as to who the captains were, which feels like too late. But anyway, we've got 5. Maverick Hansen, Jordan Turner, Tanner Miller, Nate Carter, and Aiden Childs. Only one of these is not a transfer to Michigan State University, which means that 4 are true Spartans, Alex Plum?
Correct. And as we have said, for first-time listeners to the podcast, welcome. But you'll know that this podcast is of the unanimous and irrevocable opinion that the only true Spartans are people who've come through the transfer portal because they can't abandon us again. So, yes, I'm sorry, but that is the way it is, and it will remain as such until you either graduate an alumnus or you come through the portal. So, so 4 true Spartans. That's great. And 1 who has yet to prove himself, but may in the fullness of time.
Maverick Hansen is also the one lone D'Antonio player left on the roster. Not a lone D'Antonio recruit, because there are a few of those still, but the only one who played under Mark D'Antonio. I was a bit surprised, but Greg, you had a thought on this, that it's actually not surprising at all, the number of transfers that are on the list.
Well, that's because of the number of transfers on the team, Michael. Like they don't regular, I guess what Plum would call non-true Spartans basically don't exist on this roster. Like 61 of these guys in total are
including the freshmen.
players.
Not transfer, but it weren't on the team last year. Is a better way of phrasing
last year. That's a remarkable amount of turnover, and it's why Jordan Turner, Tanner Miller, and Aiden Childs are in a position to be first-year players on the team and also captains. I would love to take these three guys in the room and hit them with MSU trivia and let them like talk about their answers in advance and just like brainstorm, do just MSU trivia night to see like, hey, what is the International Center? Where is it? And what might you do there? Or like name 2 of the dorms in South Complex. Like
where you may live.
Really,
you may live in one of them.
You're certainly across the street from it all the time.
Yeah. I think these guys would really struggle with some very like high level MSU trivia. And is Aiden Childs like the youngest MSU football captain of all time?
He's 18. He has to be.
Have we seen this? Has anyone reported on this?
I don't know about age. I mean, Kirk Cousins was a sophomore captain.
Redshirt sophomore?
I guess he did redshirt, didn't he?
He definitely redshirted.
18 is unreasonably young. Unreasonably young.
He's also the richest, allegedly, MSU football captain of all time. So,
well, maybe, and certainly one of the richest 18-year-olds probably in the country, it turns out. So.
Isn't that all the more reason to... You've made an investment in your quarterback.
Sure.
Like, isn't that the savvy move?
If you're what is a captain for? Michael, let me ask you this. What is a captain for? Really, truly, in today's day and age, what is a football captain for?
I'll tell you what not being a football captain will do. Mm-hmm. You can't tell me that didn't matter for Connor Cook in his draft evaluation.
Okay.
Like, that matters. And it's certainly... I don't know that social pressure means anything. And I assume Aiden Childs will continue to be compensated well here. So long as he's, a good quarterback. But it's got to add some statement about the team and the staff's investment in you as a long-term piece for their success.
Except that I appreciated this. Graham Couch had an article interviewing Jonathan Smith yesterday and had said, gave a little bit behind the curtain around how the captains were selected. It was clearly the coach's decisions, but every player got to vote. But if they voted, they had to explain their vote. I thought that was smart. And I think that speaks to the sort of relationships, the on-field leadership, the connection. I mean, one of the freshmen, Graham had this in the article, one of the freshmen voted for Cadillac, Alante Brown.
Yeah.
Yep. And said about him, it was the first guy that kind of made me feel welcome. Just I don't know if he was a portal kid or if he was a freshman, I guess he must have been recruited. But like, it's a big deal, right? It's a big deal to be going out and above and identifying young people new to the team, whatever, and including them. And that was a kid that was made to feel nice. And so I think that vote didn't matter. Cadillac's not on the roster as one of the captains, but he's going to be a guy that, will probably be returning some punts. Don't want to spoil our special teams. But we'll hopefully be doing some stuff for us. And so if we're building that kind of esprit de corps, then there's something to be said for that.
I also like that as a strategy too, because if you've got a whole bunch of people who are contributors who feel like they've been, in the off season, even trying to push for like being, a leader, you can provide that in the announcement, right? I assume large team meeting, right? You can read those sorts of bits of feedback off and make people who weren't selected feel included and acknowledged and appreciated. And and I think we're hoping to have Graham on soon, but like that's one of the things I want to ask about is because it does seem like there's some real authenticity to the methodology of Smith as it relates to creating cohesiveness, a cohesive culture, a togetherness of the team. And so I liked that bit about making them write a reason for, and then sharing it out. But all the same, those are our captains. Very exciting. Nate Carter feels like a seasoned pro, even though he's only been here for a season. I guess that's really where we're at now.
That is the State of the Union.
State of the Union. That's good.
All right, now I can change my banner. Let's preview the defense.
He's so
have
happy
this
about
banner
this.
ready.
Wow. Well, he still kept the words Greenwall dash. It's segment followed by sub-segment. This is great. This is
What
high.
do you think about dash, Plum?
Colon.
Would you prefer a colon?
It should have been a colon. Should have been a colon or a comma dash. Very rarely used. Very
The
rarely
comma dash
used.
I could get behind. The colon I didn't want to do because I wanted to take up more space as it related to like occupy more space. So the colon would have truncated it slightly. So this is
Very, very good.
peek behind.
So much thought went into this, but still neglected to create one for the captains. It's fine. It's fine, though.
So little thought went into this preview. So let's do it. Where do we want to start?
Well, obviously, we start with the defensive backs because good God, last year and the defensive backs and pass coverage. That is like the whole thing for me. Like, what else is there really to discuss? We should do this entire segment about will other teams be able to throw 5 million yards a game against us? Yes or no? So help me. You took this one, right, Jonesy? Our fearful host, fearless host. I don't know. Who knows what he is, what he could be. But you took this position group. So regale us.
Yeah, so there's a lot of reasons to actually have some optimism. All the players that you thought were good on last year's defense are back. And then like everyone else is new in the secondary. So I mean you've got some returning faces that you're not maybe in love with, but you've got Charles Brantley coming back, who has been injured a lot through the course of his time. He does have that one memorable interception against Michigan. Angelo Gross, who probably a little banged up, but and maybe playing a bit more than you would have liked. But those are the real like bummers. Otherwise, if we're going to call them bummers, otherwise you got Chance Rucker, who was a freshman last year, coming back as a true sophomore, who played well. Dylan Tatum, who we've long talked about on the pod, has been playing out of position, is finally playing in position as a safety or a nickel. You have Malik Spencer, again, another safety that, you know, I think you'd be pleased to have on your team. And then for backup pieces, Caleb Coley, Ade Willie, or Wiley, I'm sorry, I think it's Willie. And then Amorian Smith, who, you know, we touched on it a couple weeks ago, but, you know, I hope for all the tragedy he's going through that football is at least some sort of semblance of normalcy. But it's hard not to mention his name and just kind of feel gutted for the dude. But those are sort of all the folks coming back that you're happy about. And then they went out and got excellent transfers. So Ed Woods from Arizona State, I think, is a real high point for them. He was, I believe, all Pac-12 first team. Maybe it was second team, but was slated to start at Arizona State. They were quite caught off guard that he left. You have Nakai Martinez coming in from UCF, who played a bunch of different positions. You know, can slot in at corner or safety or nickel. Legend Cavazos, who's started at Ohio State and then went to North Carolina, sat out a season for being hurt, and is now at Michigan State. Again, a guy with a lot of versatility, meaningful playing time. Like the thread on all of these additions are they played snaps. It wasn't dude got hurt and then got passed by somebody on the depth chart. It wasn't, just never made it at Florida. A lot of the themes that we saw under Mel Tucker were, washed out of the SEC, but they'll be great here. And then no, they weren't. These are all guys who played a lot of snaps. And then Jeremiah Hughes, who spent one season at LSU, played a whole bunch of snaps on special teams, and then some as cornerback. Again, a ton of versatility. So there's like depth in this room and proven talent. There's reason to believe, maybe just maybe, people are going to play the positions they're supposed to play, and they'll be good. So I don't know.
I want to ask. I mean, for the cornerback particularly, I guess I'm not sold on Chuck Brantley. I want to be sold on Chuck Brantley. I was not sold on him last season. In June, Sports Illustrated previewed some of what they thought the defensive room would look like at this point. That was 2 months ago. We've ostensibly learned things in the interim. They were not high on Brantley. They really thought more of these portal guys were going to get action, as you point out, considering particularly some of them were guys who were known going to be starters.
Yep.
Do you perceive that there has been some shifts that people in more knowledge positions than me, maybe that's Graham, others, that Brantley has in fact made some of these strides? I don't know. I'm a little bit, I'd almost prefer to see anybody. I don't know if that's wrong.
So I think one of the coaches was asked recently about Brantley and was a bit odd in the answer. It was very non-committal. I've certainly heard that he's performed well in camp. The thing is, he just hasn't been able to stay healthy. Mm-hmm. I mean, he is slight of frame and hits like he's a bigger dude than he actually is. So to the extent that it feels like he hasn't been very good, I do think there's a fair question mark of, I mean, we saw that with the whole defense last year, because there was literally no one behind anybody. How healthy are they? He's also dabbled in the portal a couple times and has come back. But I feel pretty confident that Ed Woods is going to be definitely starting for Michigan State. Who the other cornerback is between those other transfers, Chuck Brantley and Chance Rucker, I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
But I think that's also a good thing, right? That I don't know that there's any reason I should feel like we're going to get a massive drop off. Like if Chance Rucker is your second string cornerback, I feel fine with that. He was very good as a freshman last year. I know Marvin Harrison went off on him, but Marvin Harrison also made some insane catches on him that you're like, okay.
Marvin Harrison's Marvin Harrison. So what are you going to,
Like, I don't blame the freshman. He was in position stride for stride, and it's like, okay, I guess that happens. So I don't know. I'm excited. I don't know that I'm going to go so far as to say no fly zone, but competency,
much improved.
Yeah, much improved. So I guess let's move then. If we're doing, let's do outside coming in. So, Greg, do you want to take the linebackers?
That'll be a pleasure, because I think there's some consensus that this group is maybe the strength of the upcoming defense, maybe the one that you have the least to worry about. There are some names, again, that you can forget. We have been talking about transfers. So Windman, salute to you. He's off to the Steelers as a free agent. But Brule, Nateyate, et al., goodbye and farewell. Nateyate in particular. Remember the hopes that we had for Nateyate? Dude, I remember seeing him one time on special teams. What a blessing. What a blessing. Anyway, forget those guys. What's important is that Jordan Hall is back You'll recall last year as a true freshman, he played 12 games, started in 6 of them. So I'm expecting him, and I know that this isn't guaranteed yet, but I'm expecting him to continue starting at the outside linebacker position. Cal Holiday is back as well, probably more of a middle linebacker. Hopefully, we won't have to see him range out in pass coverage nearly as much. He has led the team in tackles for the last 3 years, and I have some great memories of him making interceptions, but he's a fifth-year senior. Hopefully, he can kind of focus on what he's best at. A good question mark for the returning guys, and I'll put an emphasis on returning in this case, hopefully, is Darius Snow, who knows what we're going to get. Hopefully he's able to stay on the outside. Hopefully he's some percentage of who he was when he suffered his injury. I think we'd all just be happy to see him running around out there at this point. Yeah. And if he can contribute meaningfully, all the better. But it's a bit of a question mark, but he does represent some continuity in this in the linebacking room. So with any luck, we'll get to see him back again. Then there's some additions to the old roster. Wayne Matthews, of course, getting headlines coming in from Old Dominion, 11th in the nation last year in tackles. So expect to see him taking one of those outside spots, probably starting out there. Jordan Turner, Captain Jordan Turner, in from Wisconsin, senior middle linebacker. So, he was getting all Big Ten honors at Wisconsin, right? At one point. So I would expect him.
He's a slightly more athletic Cal Holiday, though.
So let's have him wear Cal's gloves. But he can double up on gloves, and between the two of them,
they'll have a
complete set. Yep. And then there's also Marcellus Pullman, sophomore out of Miami. Expect him in the middle as well. He contributed some down there in Miami. And then, the last remaining kind of name going into the season, Samaj Bridgman in from Michigan. And as such, has some things to prove. I want to see what this is. Who is this agent from Ann Arbor? What is he going to contribute? I know we've had a Van Sumeren in the linebacking room that made a similar move, but yeah. So overall, there's a lot of faces that we recognize, and that's a plus. But there are some question marks, and hopefully they're largely filled with pretty well regarded transfers.
I want to ask about Cal Holiday because this is a player who drove me to drink last year with his
and I think like 80,000 people in the stadium.
Correct. Yeah, with his utter inability and unwillingness to do anything with any real consistency. So I don't know. It was. I don't know. I want him to be better, and I hope he can be. I'm struck that in June, SI didn't even mention him as a starter. In fact, had nothing to say about him whatsoever, which is kind of how I felt. But maybe he's made some sort of progress. He looked a lot better 3 years ago, and we've just kind of seen this regression.
So, fun fact about that: last year he put on a bunch of weight,
right?
And part of it was out of this belief that he needed it to get through the season. And because I think he got up to like 245 maybe. And he's down, I believe, 15 pounds now, which he feels like is a much better weight for him to actually be playing at. I can only imagine at that level of athleticism that 15 pounds does make a difference on your ability to like cover a dude in space. And I do think also for Cal Holiday and Jordan Turner, because the comp is there, the scheme Rossi runs is a lot more see ball, get ball. So the linebackers have a hole they're filling. And so the D-line is going to be destructive, and they're there to plug a hole, right? And so that should be better for Cal Halliday, who just needs to get downhill for the most part. But fair point. Like, what's wild is I do think Cal Halliday is on track to break some all-time tackles record here at Michigan State. I can't imagine.
I just need him to.
Someone I've loathed that much also being like a record setter. It's kind of wild.
Yeah.
And Plum, I presume that article that you're referencing on Sports Illustrated was probably written by Hondo. And the reason that he left off Cal Halliday is because he was too focused on D'Antonio era players, your Darian Harris's, your Bullas, and probably, primarily focused on how John Runchke did nothing wrong to begin with. So anyway,
Luke Joseph was the article author. I will not be impugned. I will not be impugned on this podcast. I will not. I did the bare minimum again. I will not be impugned for it. How dare you?
Is Hondo even still writing for, like, he did those couple mailbags, and for everyone not watching on YouTube, I'm giving the air quotesiest air quotes to ever exist. Have we seen anything from Hondo recently on SI? Okay.
It's so good.
That wasn't about you, Plum. That was about me wanting to get a Hondo dig in. That's what it was.
The Renchke callback was excellent. All right, Plum, let's talk D tackles, and then I'll close us out with defensive ends.
The tackle room, we've got a starter probably in Captain Maverick Hansen. The kid's a 6th-year senior. I love this. I love 6th year, 7th year, 8th year, 9th year seniors, however many years of seniordom you can have because of whatever pandemic or series thereof. So this guy, though, brings about as much consistency to the program as, I don't know, he has more tenure probably than anyone at this point, certainly more than the band conductor. That person's new in the last 6 years, knew everything. So we love it.
How many university presidents have there been? We know there's multiple football coaches, but how many university presidents?
Literally. Harlan's gone. Truly, he has the most tenure.
In some respects, he should have tenure. I mean, they should have some sort of endowed chair position for him. The Smith endowed chair of defensive tackledom. At any rate, so we're happy for him. He, by the way, was interviewed. Had some comments anyway on media availability after practice last week, where he was asked just about the selection of the captains, and he was very honored by it. And so I thought his comments, spoke to the seniority that he brings to the team and sort of just feeling like he was valued and loved by his colleagues. He said, that's just one of the highest honors I will have received in my career at Michigan State. And I thought that was touching, that ability to sort of articulate and talk like that is really great. So alongside Maverick Hansen, you probably got your Daquan Dowses, another 6-year senior. That's great. Again,
Tech, I believe.
Yep.
Yes.
GT.
Yep. So
big get.
Yeah, and I think again, you're just speaking to guys with a ton of experience and seniority here. Other guys, you got your Ben Robertses, you've got your Jalen Satchels, your Ruquan Buckleys, your Mike Shun-Beelers. I don't really want to mention anything to do with any Van Sumeren. I don't care who has left. I don't care who has stayed. The name is sullied. The injuries.
He's the one who came to us out of high school, though.
Other one.
Yeah, this is the one that's been here the whole time.
I don't care. Your family can destroy your reputation. You are illegitimate until proven otherwise. I don't care that their names are Alex and Ben as brothers, which is my brother's name. I struggle.
They did that specifically to endear themselves to you, and it did not work.
And in some ways, actually, the fact that the Bens are both Michigan people is truly its own indictment. So, and yet we go on. So no, yeah. I don't know. I think, losing, the biggest stuff is who we lost, right? Having lost Simeon Barrow, having lost Derek Harmon. This was big, losing to Miami, Florida, and Oregon. That's going to be what probably Rossi was thinking was going to be his strongest unit into one that is going to be, we'll see how they gel. We'll see how they these guys, some of them new, some of them experienced, one of them a captain, others of them recovering from injuries and trying to find their routine. This is it's going to be a core part of the line. And as the strength, the health, the success of this will determine, I think, in many respects, the whole overall health and performance of the defensive line.
All right, and then to the defensive ends, and these folks have shifted around which side they're playing. So under Rossi's system, there's one person that's considered the rush end. So this is a very traditional pass rusher. In Rossi's system, this person also sometimes has accountability for dropping back into coverage because of Rossi likes to confuse people. And so that's one of the tricks in his tool belt. And then you have your strong side defensive end, which is going to be more of a conventional prototype for a defensive end player. But so we've had people swapping back and forth, which makes it a little harder. But as far as we can tell, Chris Bogle is for sure going to be your starting rush end. A player who got a ton of run last year and was quite successful, Jalen Thompson, is likely going to be your starting strong side defensive end, but was in the spring playing with the rush ends. So TBD on that. Otherwise, behind them, you're looking at Avery Dunn, who I think is maybe in his 8th year of football. James Schott. Ken Talley's going to be probably playing strong side defensive end. Tyler Gillison, cousin, I believe, of Trent Gillison, is with the rush ends. I actually, Plum, I think that I'm more optimistic about defensive tackle. Sure, maybe we had a drop off on the ceiling, but I think the floor, I feel like they did a good job of stabilizing things with the folks they brought in. At the end positions, I think between Bogle and Thompson, I feel great. The second one of them goes down, I am a lot less certain about what's behind them. Whereas like Alex Van Sumeren and Ben Roberts, while younger, there's reasons to be optimistic about both for 4-star recruits, right? Like you maybe don't want them playing all of those snaps, but you wouldn't mind it if they came in. So I don't feel that same level of conviction about the ends.
I don't think that's unfair. I don't think that's unfair. I think what I would tell you, though, is that you are overlooking Quindarius Dunnigan, who I probably just slaughtered that name. No, I didn't. And
no, that's right. Yeah.
Who comes to us from what school, Michael? What school? Middle Tennessee State. And
yes.
We do ourselves a disservice in not recognizing that Middle Tennessee State will forever live in the pantheon of sportsdom, having done what they did to Michigan all those years ago. And so I look at any recruit from Middle Tennessee State as one who couldn't possibly let us down. And so I think having him add some depth there, hopefully in a way that provides more of that floor, and I think should give you more courage for that position group.
Who was I mixing him up with? Oh, I was mixing him up with Dowse. You are very right. That's a good call, Plum. I'm sorry. I got him and Dowse confused as the same person. But yeah, Dunnigan, huge pickup. He had an insane number at Middle Tennessee State sacks or pass. Very good call out. Yes, that's an excellent point. Anyway, that's the defense. Let's go to what can only be truly better than it was last year. If you thought the defense had nowhere to go up but up, special teams, notwithstanding the kickers, can only get better. So, Plum, do you want to take us through the special teams?
Listen, we've got it.
Do you want to say anything about Ross Ells before we get going?
Listen.
I brought out my nicest scotch for this.
That was good of you, frankly. Ross
that's
Ells,
the most generous thing anyone's ever done for Ross Ells.
For Ross Ells.
It's a wake. I'm celebrating his death.
I did purchase a plot of land for him to be buried in, dead or alive, and I have been pissing on it weekly since I purchased it. So Anyway, it's in a swamp. So I think we need to start off with acknowledging and celebrating Jonathan Kim. I know that we're not as worried about the kicker group, but Jonathan Kim has kept us alive in times when we deserve to be dead, in times when Ross Ells had literally sold us out, had tried to put arsenic in the drinking water on this program. Jonathan Kim said, "Not for me. My body metabolizes arsenic, you son of a bitch," and kicked us all the way to glory. So grateful for him. Martin Connington, a freshman, and Tariq Ahmed Bazik, redshirt freshman, will have a tremendous amount to learn now that Steven Rusnick has left, and we say piss all the way off him. Stevie. But grateful that two freshmen get to watch Jonathan Kim in glory. So we're happy for that. Ryan Eckley, a sophomore, coming back as our punter. He's got Carson Voss backing him up, and we'll be have said goodbye to Michael O'Shaughnessy, who certainly was the cause of my Irish troubles. Okay.
Eckley, I believe, is on the preseason watch list for Ray Guy Award.
Guy, yeah, that's an award.
And I believe was second team All Big Ten last year, which was the highest honoree of all Spartans last year. I mean, it didn't take much. So, anyways, we say the kickers, the punters, and of course the long snappers. We are. I have to say, I don't have great feelings about the loss of Hank Pepper, long snapper Hank Pepper, but but he chose to leave, so he can piss off. And we're happy to welcome junior Caden Schickel, backed up by senior Sam Edwards. Honestly, the job of long snapper is just not a hard one. Okay, what is required is a bit of metal. You just have got to have your head on your shoulders. And so, if they can do that, they will have done their thing. Here's what we need to be talking about is the kick returners. Because my Lord and my God, we have refused with any consistency to return the ball with any positive yardage. We have dropped the ball. We have fucked the ball. We've done things to the ball that, frankly, can't be repeated. And none of them were constructive in a point-scoring way toward the objective of winning football games. So let's start. Go ahead. No, go ahead, please, anyone. Do we remember how last season started?
I don't want to.
Alante Brown went into a full fencing pose after being obliterated, left the game, then brought out again to play. I believe this was our first, I know it's special teams, but offensive play of the game. If I recall, it's like, hey Siri, what's the opposite of the Kenneth Walker touchdown to start the Northwestern game? That is what we experienced.
That's right. I forgot about that. Oh, yep. Wow. I took that memory and buried it deep down. Okay.
I hope Alante has too, if we're being really honest, if he can even remember.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's been buried deep down for him, unfortunately. Sorry, Paul, go ahead.
Very reminiscent of those College Humor videos with the goalkeeper who gets blasted in the face by the ball 30 times and they won't take him out of the game on the penalty kicks. It's just sort of like, why is he back in? This has got to be a NCAA investigation at some point. So, we'll see. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot here. We got Montori Foster, and we have Alante Brown. And so I don't know what
Glover maybe.
Maybe. Listen, what I can say is we don't have Ross Ells anymore. We've got our running backs / post special teams coordinator, Keith Bonafa. So, listen, Keith could be dog shit. I don't know, but he couldn't be worse than Ross Ells. So, at Keith's worst, it can't be anywhere near what it was last year. And I would think that whatever part of Cadillac Brown's head skull was fractured has hopefully got some sort of titanium insert, and so that can only lead to more resilience for the kid now as we get going.
He's actually part Cadillac. Dark. They took it off of like an exhaust manifold on a Cadillac, and he's part Cadillac now.
Steel, the 1970s Cadillac Elantra. That's great. That's good. This is good. So a DeVille. He's a DeVille guy. You like that?
All right, well, that's the preview. We kick off on Friday. I'm assuming, Kevin, in preparing for this pod, you've got a preview put together. We'll do that later.
No, let's do it now, Michael. Let's do it now.
Do it now!
As Plum was walking us through the special teams, I realized we didn't have a formal Owls preview.
I'm just going to go ahead and put that
was,
segment back on the outline so that we don't forget next week.
That was concerning to me that there's a game this week and we have no Florida Atlantic preview.
Don't do that when you need to have our new Chiron updated here with Greenwall previewing Florida Atlantic, the Owls, and then add a who. Thank you.
And in that spirit, our Florida Atlantic Owls preview comes to us from the Audubon Society with some owl facts. Did you guys know that some owls have asymmetrical ears and they're located at different heights on their heads, and that's how they're able to triangulate the location of prey so well? I did not know that of owls, much less those of the Florida Atlantic variety. And did you know that owls' eyeballs are not actually eyeballs the way that we have them? They're more tube-shaped and they're immobile. They don't move. That's why their head has to spin so much. It provides better long, binocular vision. But obviously, you need that range of movement. And then that range of movement, this is all from the Audubon Society, that some owls can spin their heads up to the rotations up 270 degrees. And that actually cuts off circulation when they're spinning around, when they're all turret mode. So owls have evolved to have a blood pooling system that is still able to power the brain and eyes and all of that stuff, even when they're in full sentry mode. So owls are spectacular creatures.
Sentry mode. That's what it's known as.
Yeah, this is really
Owls are spectacular creatures. The Florida Atlantic Owls are coming to East Lansing this week. We neglected to put a preview on our outline, but I think we still covered it.
We know their coach is Tom Herman. That's something we know. First-year head coach.
Cool. Hook 'em.
And I think their offensive line has never played.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're all freshmen.
4-8 last season, and their coach, who's had stints at Texas and Houston, was most recently in Spartan Stadium when J.D. Barrett put 49 on us as Ohio State's offensive coordinator. So the Spartan Stadium fates for this guy don't look great for us, but fuck him. We will win.
He doesn't have Ohio State's team walking in the door. So
more to the and he
need to keep that in mind.
And also, I mean, Tom Herman, which is just really one of the most white mayonnaise names I've ever heard, has now failed twice at Texas and Houston. So why can't he fail with the Owls? Let's just make it a trifecta. Trifecta of failuredom.
Would expect him to. And I expect him to fail this week. Jonesy, you were on Locked On Spartans this week. Mm-hmm. And you were exchanging, you had a great little bit with our friend over there, Matt Sheehan, about things that would make you upset, things that you're going to have a cool head over. One of the things that he posted to you was if we lost this game, he made a commitment, I think maybe more to himself than his listenership, that he wouldn't let it ruin his entire life. And I was surprised by that because I have read up a little bit of the Florida Atlantic Owls, not just owls generally. And it does seem like they're in a bit of a transition phase over there. Mm-hmm. Are you expecting, in your prep for that show and for this one, are you expecting this Florida Atlantic team to put up much of a fight?
Let's say first what was most surprising about that is the idea that Matt Sheehan was not going to let that ruin his life. Let's be very clear. That will destroy his Labor Day weekend. He was for sure lying when he said that.
It felt like he was talking to an audience. It felt like he was talking in a mirror when he said that on Locked On this week.
It's like, you have to say this publicly, Matt. It's as if his therapist had challenged him to sort of present that to the world so that maybe he would believe in himself. I don't expect that. Look, even here's a handful of things that are worth remembering. One, Jonathan Smith has actually brought in pretty great transfer portal talent. I mean, really, we've talked about it already. Everyone who he brought in, for the most part, has either has played meaningful snaps. We love the guys that we would be thrilled with, whether depth pieces or plug and play. Like, you don't love losing potentially NFL talent level guys, but these are all really great transfer portal pickups. Also, Mel Tucker may have been a terrible coach for a variety of reasons and had objectively dogshit coordinators, but he did recruit some talent, and a lot of those 4-star talents that he brought in are now either entering their sophomore or junior seasons. Like, there's reasons to believe that this team let me rephrase that. You should feel absolutely confident that this team has 1,000% more talent than whatever FAU is rolling into Spartan Stadium with.
Right.
So your next question is, can Jonathan Smith and company coach? Well, I don't know if anyone watched DJ Uiagalelei absolutely not be able to complete a forward pass.
Shell-shocked. Just annihilated.
Looked
over
like
there in Ireland.
Absolute shit for Florida State. But you know who made him look confident? Jonathan Smith.
We'll never forget, or forgive rather, the 1908 invention of the forward pass. Too bad for him. Really would have been a very well-rounded quarterback otherwise.
I think I saw the Moneyball meme of this is DJ. He's blah 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 blah. The problem is the forward pass was invented in 1908.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. So good.
So, but anyway, I would be bothered if we lost this game. It might ruin my weekend if we lost this game. So I'm calling bullshit, Sheehan. I didn't want to do that to you on your own show, so I chose to wait until now to tell you.
You can't say it over there. It's a family show, so you had to wait.
Family podcast.
You had to wait.
Anyway, Greg, I like this preview. I challenge you to keep this theme up, though, of previewing the mascot in addition to actually previewing the team. Yeah, we're playing the USC Trojans. Here are 3 fun facts about Trojan condoms. And then we'll do that.
Stupid.
All right.
Stupid. He abandoned this post. That's so stupid. All right. Go ahead. Sorry. I distracted you.
Let's go overseas and chat very briefly about the last game in Spain. Michigan State lost 115 to 110 against I believe KK Serbia Football Club Fun, KK, something like that is the name of
a lot of K's. I'm becoming uncomfortable.
I believe football is in the name of their team, which I don't understand, but they are a Euro Champ League team, which means they're one of 32 teams across Europe that competes. They are very much a professional team, and Michigan State got behind early and then just was never able to quite catch up. Again, after 4 quarters, losing by 5. Greg, looking over I actually watched this game for a little bit, and Kevin Pauga, I'll say this, could do play-by-play. He is more than capable of, because he was not bad.
He's more than a scheduling guy. He's more than an index.
I'll go so far as to say that Kevin Pauga is better than the current voice that they have for MSU basketball games.
I would go so far as to say that the person that they grabbed off of the concourse implied with alcohol is better than the current play-by-play. But continue.
Yeah, Pag is great. Otherwise, the Instagram angle is not great for being able to provide meaningful commentary back on like what was good or bad about it, because it was pretty much courtside, right? And so it was a bit hard to watch the game from that perspective. But we do have some box score updates. This is a game that Jaden Akins did finally show up in. I believe scoring 14.
Well, he played the most minutes.
16,
That's worth noting in all of this. 29 minutes in his redemption tour.
Yeah, nearly. And 16 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, and went. I believe Graham described it in his piece as got a bucket when MSU needed a bucket, and was able to sort of show that taking over gene that we've been asking about. So that's great. Otherwise, Jackson Kohler continued to look like the best center on the team, and I don't know. That's kind of all I've got on this game, other than maybe it was. Oh, and Cohen Carr was actually fantastic again. 10 points, 8 boards, 5 offensive rebounds. 0 for 1 from behind the arc, which I don't hate that he took the shot. I don't know. I think losing is valuable sometimes. And losing to a pro team is valuable.
Do they not play defense in the Europe?
Well, it is a longer game.
I'm sure Tom.
This one was a longer game than usual, so it's worth noting that in all of this. Rotation-wise, this game was interesting to me because it was a challenge, and there's a lot of playtime going around for your Jeremy Fearses and your Xavier Bookers. Jesse McCullough, 2 minutes. Kurtang, 9 minutes. Someone else in here had like 6 or 7 minutes. Garrick Norman, like single-digit minutes. So I would say that those are guys that are currently...
you didn't mention? Jace Richardson, 21 minutes.
Oh, very good. Astute. That's why you're the host. Well done. But when we get mad about the rotation in the future, I think this gives us some indication of like where Izzo kind of thinks these guys are and who we can expect to have on the floor. Carson Cooper, 14 minutes. I just saw him. He was walking around. Welcome week. So he's doing all right, but only 14 minutes in this game, which is relatively low. So there's always something to take from these. And that was one of my takeaways. Kind of see the guys, and this is before technically practice even really starts for the year. But we can kind of start to see that distribution of playing time.
And third game in 7 days? 6 days, something like that?
Mm-hmm.
That's also, look, we would point that out in the middle of the season. It's worth pointing out on an overseas trip when they're also doing, sightseeing stuff, and that they played a lot of hard basketball in a short period of time. And the last game was the hardest game from again, this is a professional European team in Serbia's top league, competes in the Eurochamp League. Like, that was a good team. I believe I think they had 2 guards. I'm gonna mess that up. I don't know. But anyway, good team. Lost by 5. 48 minutes is a long time to play a game. That's also a fair point.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I'm glad they lost. In a weird way, like, I would hate for them to have done that trip and have won all of the games. I don't know that that's a useful exercise there's growth that comes from loss. So
Sure. Get it out of your system.
all right, let's chat a little women's soccer before we head off Grand River, shall we?
Gotta do it. This is a big. This is big for the program. No, we do have to do it. I think again, this podcast celebrates Jeff Hostler, the coach of the Michigan State women's soccer program, who has just been electric in what is this, his second season with the team. Snapped 13 straight seasons of losing to Notre Dame in their opener, which they won. We drew last week with 2 top 10 teams squaring off at DeMartin Stadium, Arkansas and Michigan State. Interestingly, I can tell you the referee crew that they put on this game was not one of the best. Surprisingly, I know the referee middling. This would have been a tryout game for him in a non-conference season, so that was a little surprising. He didn't have bigger guns on this. I think the probably most skilled official was the 4th official. So a little surprised by the crew. But you know what? I'm happy to be surprised by these kinds of things. Interesting tradition in Michigan State. They lead off with senior night. It's a way to kind of honor the players at the beginning of the season and then not let it sort of interrupt like a lot of high schools and maybe other programs do. It's just been a tradition of the soccer program for many years here. So anyway, yeah, so was happy for that, though. I think that the Arkansas win or the Arkansas tie, the draw, it was unfortunately a little sloppy defending from the women, but that's okay. That's what you want to see earlier in the season to tighten some of that up. Frankly, some of their goals that we scored were unimpressive. The first goal really went right through the goalkeeper's hands. So a little sloppiness from both players. But the women very much redeemed themselves. I think yesterday they beat the Bobcats of Ohio 3-0, which you like to see that as well. Ohio, of course, they're in Bourbonnais. Not a convincing program by any means, but still a good 3 goals to get on the tally sheet. And so we're happy for the women. And the men, I can say, they've got some stuff happening for themselves too. They think they're going to make the tournament again. Their coach might be a sociopath, but he is still a Spartan. And so we will be celebrating both of these programs and wishing them the very best.
Plum, I have to ask. Oh, go ahead, Greg.
I was just going to put in a plug. If you're coming into town this weekend for the football game, playing Ole Miss at DeMartin Stadium, the women are Thursday night. So that's a pretty solid out of conference game, I would think.
Anytime you pull an SEC team up, particularly to play in the Big Ten, that's going to be a big deal. Remember, Title IX, considerations for women's sports. I'll tell you, at least this was true 10 years ago when I was still refereeing in the SEC. The SEC officials were the best paid in the country. You made more working a women's SEC game than I did work in any men's game, maybe apart from the NCAA tournament. So the resources the SEC channels into women's soccer is serious. And so you can get very, very, very good programs down there. Ole Miss, not to be trifled with. So they'll be bringing a lot of energy when they come up. And another win for Michigan State will be a very, very good one and continue to put them into good footing as the rest of the season seeks to unfold.
Plum, I have to ask, since we're about to go off Grand River, did you see the fight in the Rutgers game?
Not pretty. Folks may remember what was it, BYU Utah State or something game of years ago when the angry player, New Mexico State, I can't remember who she played for, the ponytail puller. Do you remember what I'm talking about? This was a decade ago, probably. A decade ago, this was a big deal. Obviously, the referees, John McCoy, who's listening, will remember this, because the NCAA created an entire rule category, which meant that anytime a player grabbed another player by the hair, it was an immediate ejection because this bitch was going around grabbing ponytails and yanking girls from behind, their heads snapping back. I mean, it is very unsafe, obviously, but the fact that it like went all over ESPN and everything, you should just look ponytail lady soccer player.
Yeah, so the Rutger player got yanked by the hair and then drew a haymaker and suplexed the girls who did that to her. It was a legit don't mess with people from Jersey moment. And
I gotta say again,
I'm with the Rutgers player on this one. Like,
it's hard. It's hard not to feel a little, defensive for her there. I will say, watching the replay, I was very surprised. The referee was in position and actually called the initial foul, but completely misread the situation. I have to say, this is if I know
on the slide tackle, right? Called the foul on the slide tackle.
Yeah, because
for listeners who haven't seen, the Rutgers player did a slide tackle from behind, which tripped up the other player. A third player comes in and grabs the Rutger player by the hair and yanks her off, and then the Rutger player gets up and drops a haymaker, suplexes her.
Yeah.
It was
excellent. Both players ejected there, but that's again, as referees, our job is as best we can to kind of predict and prevent those situations from happening. Sure. That referee is, I'm fairly certain I know who she is actually an MLS or a professional referee in the women's ranks, and how she didn't read this unfolding, because the Rutgers player was in the wrong and initially, and the Rutgers player, comes up fast
on the slide tackle,
on the attacker, and rides her, and then tackles her. And so she was probably pulling some shit in those couple of instances, those moments of tackling, those attempts before she actually committed the slide tackle. And the referee doesn't react to any of that, just calls the simple foul. That's surprising, because all of the body language, the posturing, all of that, any seasoned referee would be like, I got to get over there now, or I have to close this gap, lay on the whistle, whatever it is, lend that physical presence. Didn't do it. Obviously, things went south quite profoundly. So anyway, love to see a little suplex action in women's college soccer.
And I just want to point out throughout this entire segment, our podcast host has had the running banner as women's soccer stays hot, which, near as I can tell, is a misogynistic trope about finding sexual energy in violence among women. And I denounce it. I won't be party to it.
That's
disgusting,
good.
Michael.
But you waited until now to say something. You waited until now.
I wanted to hear Plum say riser, and then
okay. And then saw the Chiron change. That's great.
Yeah,
that's just great.
So on that transition note,
and not up to the standard of the podcast, we'll do better, listener. I promise. Or in this case, watcher. The listeners had no idea what was going on, what you were up to, your hijinks.
But they were disappointed for some reason. They didn't know why.
Okay. Anyway, Greg mentioned that if you're in town for the game, you can go to Ole Miss. And if you are coming to town and you're taking old I-94, you should definitely stop into Mama's Mercantile and Eatery off of Clear Lake Road. Why do I always forget what exit number that is? It doesn't matter. You'll see it.
You'll
it says
find
Clear
it.
Lake Road.
You'll just find it. It's like an oasis in the desert. There's a single light. It's a beacon. You'll find it if you need it.
It's great. You should definitely check it out on your way. Maybe you're getting out of work early. You can get a beverage, have some food. Get that base in there for you to start your tailgate. You'll have great food, a great time. And if you mention Can't Read, Can't Write, you'll get 10% off of your bill. So check out Mama's Mercantile and Eatery. You can see them on Instagram at mamas.merc. So check them out. All right, let's head off Grand River. And what do we got here? So I think the most potentially consequential news is that the NCAA is looking at reducing for football the transfer window for football. Sorry, got confused there. So they're going to reduce from 2 transfer portal windows for football down to 1. So football players will only be able to leave the team after the end of the season, or rather, that's the only time that they can be picked up. So, like, you could leave in spring, but no one can add you to their roster. So you won't see sort of this twice renegotiating that we like Derek Harmon and Simeon Barrow did with us. So this is I think a net positive, and hopefully, they need to balance the transactional nature with this with also a legitimate demand for roster stability, right?
Sure. I mean, I actually kind of doubt that this ends up happening, because this would be the first step back in the expansion of these types of things that we've seen since like COVID. So
Sure.
I'm skeptical on this. I also kind of get the argument for why there should be a spring transfer window, because that's where rosters are kind of starting to shake out. You see where you are in the depth chart. Maybe it's time for a move. The realities of NIL, of course, add an entire other element to this. But if you like look at it by, you know, how it's meant to work, I understand what the spring transfer window was for originally. But we'll see. I mean, it would, as a fan, it would reduce my heartburn. So I like it for that reason. And I'm in favor of it. What other factors are there to consider? I don't know. Any? Plum, anything on this?
No, nothing matters. And anyway, until it's already happened, it hasn't happened, and therefore it probably won't happen. So
Here.
Next up, in the story that nobody is talking about as it relates to scholarships, Ohio State's athletic director says the school will lose about 150 athletic scholarships as a result of some of these changes coming out of the House settlement, not the least of which is a decision, the decision as to what scholarships you're going to be prioritizing. I think this is, I think Ohio State, being who they are and probably who they're trying to compete with, and the SEC gets knocked down all the time for having very few sports that are scholarship in nature. And Ohio State probably considers itself a school that's trying to model itself more after the SEC model than the Big Ten model in some ways. I think this is kind of telling of them saying what they're going to be prioritizing moving forward, and could be a leading indicator for things to come at the Big Ten. As I assume other schools are not going to want to just fall behind Ohio State more than we already have in some ways.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it means something. Ohio State coming out as an institution and saying that this is likely going to happen. I think most other schools have sort of tried to play both sides of this or pretend that there aren't going to be significant changes in this area. And these schools are going to have a decision that they need to make. And Plum, you've talked about this a number of times. So this is inevitable. This is where it's headed, that maybe we end up losing most or all of the scholarships. I don't know.
Well, again, I just think this is what's fucked up about the whole situation, and it's destroying collegiate athletics. So buckle up.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the natural ending of it. So if Ohio State can't afford this, fuck you. You're a fucking liar, and you're stupider too. But if you really can't, then no one will be able to. And so
ironically, expanding scholarship opportunities, right, has messed
100%.
things up because you've got to reduce.
Yep. So make it make sense. I can't. So I guess I appreciate the transparency. Maybe this is one of those clarion call moments, and it helps us try to figure out a solution here. But there seem to be none in the offing as we dither and dather around how many transfer portal windows there will be. Cool. Literally deck chairs. So that's great.
Sure.
That's really
Um,
Speaking of which, this leads very well into our next topic.
Yeah, I actually have a take on this. So, but I'm curious if any of you do. Apparently, the University of Colorado football team solicited money from the Saudis for investment.
It's unclear, right? Trevor Riley was special teams coordinator? Running back? Something like that? I don't know. Some coordinator. Apparently only made $90,000 a year, so he couldn't have been a very important coordinator for the Colorado Buffs program. But in a letter, I don't know, he was dismissed on August 1st, writes a letter to the AD and to Deion Sanders, who is just insane looking. And in it went on to say that basically in Deion's name, or in at least the name of the program, and at their urging, had gone through or blown through what he referred to as his $3 trillion worth of Mormon contacts and then went to the Middle East and got a meeting with the Saudis to try to bankroll the NIL program, what is the 5340 program, whatever they call it, at Colorado. What is confusing to me in the article that I've read, at least, is that he apparently, and I don't have the original copy of the letter, he also later said that he was doing it just on his own merit. But it very clearly, the quote they have,
like Connor Stallions.
Well, it's confusing. And that the school then confirmed that in fact he did it himself. But he also said, "And I did it in your name." So I don't quite know how to mesh those things together. But yes,
sure.
I think this is fine. I think this is fine. What do you think, Michael?
I think I have a hard time believing that soliciting money from the Saudis is substantially any worse than soliciting money from private equity.
Private equity. I was going to say the same thing.
Thank you.
I don't. The chase of the almighty dollar is equally morally bankrupt.
You got
whether
it.
you are in
100%.
Saudi Arabia oppressing human rights there, or if you're in the United States oppressing human rights here.
Yep.
So, and why do we have to grade these things as like some rights are?
100%.
I don't know. Repressing women is repressing women, and you can do that stateside as much as you can do that somewhere else.
You could do that on this podcast with your little taglines at the bottom on YouTube. You could do that as the host of this podcast, just in the last segment, Michael.
Ross Elzian, just horrible. But more to the point,
I hate you. I quit this pod.
Oh, I texted you guys that the other day. I think that to your point about oppressing women, I mean, isn't this what Ohio State is talking about doing with eliminating 150 scholarships? Let's be explicit.
Well,
So
they
whether
have to
you're
do it
getting the money-
50-50.
Oh, fuck it. Who it's going to impact, right? Who it's going to disproportionately impact are women. And that is ultimately what we're talking about here. Whether it's Saudi Arabia, it's capitalism. And this is what we've done. It isn't about for love of team, for love of school spirit, for love of alma mater. It's trophies. It's trophies and it's giant NIL bags and it's money.
Yeah, winning is fun. I am sure that that the people who support the team in Ann Arbor, well, we know, and we're going to get to, have gone through a whole series of mental gymnastics to say that the cheating that they engaged in doesn't matter. But if they would just acknowledge it's because winning is fun and they won, then I weirdly would respect them a bit more. But the winning got tied to dollars at some point in time, and then it became not about fun. What's wild to me in all of this, and I still haven't quite figured it out, is that these are all not-for-profit institutions. So
all not-for-profit institutions that are paying their head football coaches crazy money, that are building massive buildings, that are signing huge TV contracts, massive $100 million a year per institution TV contracts. It's
like when people talk about taxing the churches.
I mean, he solicited the Mormon Church for this.
There you
but
go.
like, I mean, what is college football but a church? In some ways, like, what is it but a church? It is something that you tithe to, whether that's through or you give service to. It is something that uplifts you. It is an orientation of sorts. I don't mean to diminish Plum. Obviously, you're the more religious one on the pod, but like, there are parallels in a great number of ways to the way mega churches operate in their fundraising and their devotion that they cultivate. I don't know. It's Saturdays versus Sundays. It's just a different operation. All not for profit, though. Anyway,
we're making a podcast for the
we're spreading the word,
not the church.
That's
one.
it. That's good. That's good.
So, folks, find us on Venmo if you would like to tithe to us, and then we'll tithe on your behalf. And we'll make this an MLM, and we'll just send it along.
Recruit more people.
Praise be. All right. Last up, Michigan it has finally been announced they've received and they've confirmed their official notice of allegations as it relates to Connor Stallions and the cheating scandal, in addition to some additional recruiting issues that they've run into. What we know so far is that it sounds like the notice of allegations is very similar to the draft notice of allegations that ESPN got a hold of. And Jesse Mintner and Denard Robinson have decided that they would like to work out a deal with the NCAA, which is delightful. I don't know that I have a ton to say on this, actually, but I'm curious if you two do.
I heard that the NCAA sent listener Mike Jones over to Denard Robinson's house to hammer that deal out. It's my understanding of how that went down. It's a very insensitive joke, but because Denard clearly has a problem. Anyway, this, I look forward to covering this for the next 5 years. Like, this is just the beginning. What happened this week with the other teams that finally reached the conclusion of their investigations? Like, we get a vague idea of what it might look like for Michigan, but this process is going to take forever.
Yeah, so they have 90 days to respond unless they agree to an extension, which is entirely possible that they could agree to an extension.
Likely. Mm-hmm.
Then the NCAA needs to respond. I mean, I will say it feels unlikely that the NCAA resolved the air quote hamburger case, cheeseburger case, whatever. And then the timing doesn't seem coincidental that they waited to make sure that Michigan would be considered a repeat offender. And so maybe, just maybe, they don't grant that extension.
I think that's a lot of conjecture. Here's my question.
It for sure is.
How the fuck does something that happened that we knew about literally a year ago, how are we now just getting the notice of allegations? Shouldn't the notice of allegations been placed, I don't know, 10 months ago? I obviously I don't know the process, but I can tell you that there is no justifiable world. This is why the NCAA has no fucking credibility, because the punishments, if they happen so long into the future as to be meaningless, as to have no real impact in real time. And I know you'll tell me, well, Harbaugh had to get a 3-day suspension. That was the school did that, hoping to stave off some of it.
The Big Ten did that.
Right. Thank you. But my point is, it was still like
suspended him for the cheeseburger at the beginning.
Yes, that was right. No, yes, right. But my point is, like, everybody knew. Everyone knew. The school knew. Central Michigan's AD, who's probably, I don't know how you explain her, knew. Everyone knew. Everyone knew everything. Always everyone knowing. And the NCAA knew. And it is now August 25th or whatever, 24th, whenever the NOA was received. I just don't understand. It's truly a useless, imbecile-led and filled entity of dumb dummies doing dumb things. Confusing.
But there's a comp for you, Plum.
Oh,
the comp is the FBI investigated. Yeah, there are coaches on wiretaps.
I was going to say, this feels very Mueller investigation is what I'm afraid this is going to turn into. Of like, some headlines. Oh, he's a repeat offender now. Oh, he rolled Denard Robinson. Oh, Mueller's going to come through on this one. And then a report drops that's like, yeah, things happened. And we're expecting there to be consequences.
I was doing Will Wade, Bill Self. Like, I mean, those guys were literally involved in FBI wiretaps, and Bill Self is still coaching.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
Let's try the exercise that you did with Sheehan on Lockdown about, like, let's not get too excited about these things. We already know who the University of Michigan is. We already know what they've been up to. We already know what they did. We already know that they're cheaters. We already know that they're scoundrels. Let's guard ourselves on this whole thing. Should we make
Gird
that
your
commitment?
loins.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that we believe that they did in fact cheat.
Mm-hmm.
And if you cheated, then it doesn't matter how good you are. You cheated and you didn't win. Their national championship, whether they could have won it on their own or not, we'll never know because you cheated. So, and if you thought it wasn't important, that it's of no consequence, then why did you spend money to do it? So,
Is it?
so I agree. Whether the NCAA does anything, I know what I know. I have my truth. Plum, I cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, you didn't. I don't have anything else to add.
Cheers. Also, plug for listener Mike Jones.
What a mensch.
Get yourself a pretty cinnamon whiskey. Sun Beach
Nice.
Bonfire Cinnamon Whiskey.
Son of a beach. All right, let's go to Twitter questions. And speaking of Mike Jones, this is perfect transition. He asks, bold prediction time. Give me your boldest MSU football 2024 take. Mine, Aiden Childs combines for 30-plus touchdowns passing and rushing. Plum, what do you think?
It could happen. I think that listen, as long as he does better than that DJU, I just want to see positive yards. Just give me positive yards. Positive.
Well, all of his games will be played CONUS, so maybe that'll help to some degree. Any bold takes, though, Plum, for 2024?
Sure. We win 10 games.
Ooh, people are saying.
Bold enough? Bolder? Boldest?
Jonesy, next up from Mike Jones. What's next Saturday look like for you? Did you clear the calendar? Mr. Jones, what might you smoke for that first full Saturday of college football? It goes to how old and lame we are that everyone listening and on this podcast knew with this question that he was talking about meat and not anything else. And there wasn't even any question about what he was referencing there. But anyway, Jonesy, what do you think?
Jer has a very weird question coming up for you later on. So keep that in mind as it relates to smoking. I have honestly, Mike, I've been thinking about just smoking a pork butt, largely because I can freeze a bunch of it and use it for things later. That's been leading to cheapness, and so maybe for the first Saturday, that's what I'll do.
I just want to cut in and say briefly that I was late getting back to my hotel room tonight because I was with my brother, who spent all day today smoking a pork butt, and it was delicious. So
it's excellent.
You should do it. You should do it.
Last time I did it, it took me 26 hours though.
Well, he put it in. He had it on there for about 11.
Wow. So. Oh, he made time. All right. Next up from listener Mike Jones. Speculate on the present delivered on December 23rd, 2024. Kevin, did he text us about this?
Is this Big Ten? It's not bowl games. What is this?
Is he giving us beverages?
That he's calling the shot on for December 23rd, 2024?
Weird way to do it, man.
I don't know what this is about. Plum, do you know what this is in reference to?
I couldn't even begin to guess.
Because bowl games get announced way before this. They get announced at the end of the...
December 23rd. I don't know.
I'm looking at Bourbon
Christmas
release
Eve
calendar.
Electoral College. It's not until January, right?
Something on Twitter? Is there some kind of follow-up to this?
We played Arizona State on the 26th, right?
Did we have an Angel's Envy from him?
No.
We might. No. Okay.
Did we have an Old Forester from him?
Mike
All
Jones,
right, this is not good podcasting.
About, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Next up from the Key Ski, who announces here the hatchet is buried. Jones is off the hook. Are you gonna gloat? Are you gonna go on a on a little victory lap? Like, what did you guys like chat? Bro,
No, I think
hung it out?
Keithski insulted my career last episode, and I laughed at it for him, and he feels like he got the last word, and so now he needs to like take a little celebratory dance on our podcast.
Yeah, good for him. Good for him. We
It
like
seems Keithski like the hatchet might not be fully buried. This
not
is
buried.
a
He's
half
pissed.
buried, half unburied.
Very angry. Very upset about it still. Literally upset.
Also, isn't his next question, by the way, literally what I said that he got so upset about? Oh my God.
Well, let's go to this. It is specifically to Plum. What is one thing you've noticed abroad that should be brought to the U.S.? Mine is skinnier roads that force drivers to focus on driving.
Well,
Keith, guess what they have in the old cities on the East Coast? Skinny roads.
Someone's very
I don't even
personal.
know what they're fighting about anymore. So
I'm not sure they do. Yes, primary care, affordable, accessible, community-driven primary care. Cuba's primary care model in Cuba is, I mean, it truly is. It's the best in the world. There is no better delivery of primary care. They use what are called promotoras. They work at the individual level, like of the favela. Like these people are everywhere. There's a doctor available for every like couple of thousand people. It is insanely accessible. It's all state run, which you can debate about,
Like
but you cannot debate that the level of chronic disease management is so much better. And if you do that early enough, you don't have the insane costs that we have trying to manage, people losing appendages, chronic kidney disease, diabetes, mellitus, all the rest of it. You manage it so much better on the front end if we just invested in primary care and public health like they do in Cuba. One of the poorest fucking countries on earth. So, yep, that would be my soapbox. All right, next up.
Greg.
Grooch, what's more important, 2 great offensive guards or 1 great center?
I'll take 2 great players on the offensive line over 1 great player on the offensive line. And that might not be championship winning football, but it's right here, right now, what I want for my team football. So that will be my choice. I understand centers are very important and they elevate your team, but I'd rather have 2 great players on the line than 1. So do you guys disagree with that?
No, I agree. Greg, I'm going to stick with you here. Pick your starting 5 for the all Izzo doghouse team. The rules must be an actual 5 that could play together. So you can't name 4 power forwards, but you can slide someone out of position within reason. And they must, at some point in their career, have been on Izzo's shit list. This is a great question. This is pretty decent segment fishing.
This is
but
real
I'm gonna,
segment fishing.
I'm going to indulge it. I'm going to demand an answer.
We're going to put at the center position, we're going to put Goran Sutan because I know he did have he had redemption, but there were times where I remember Izzo wasn't happy with him. I wasn't happy with him. So we're going to put him at center.
Quick question. Point guard. Is there an answer other than AJ Hogard?
It doesn't seem like he spent that much time in Izzo's doghouse. I think Keith Appling spent more time in Izzo's doghouse than AJ Hogard did.
If Jeremy Fears had not been shot?
Or if Keith Appling hadn't shot someone, maybe we would feel better about that. But I'm going to put Keith Appling up there in the 1 spot. For the 4, how do we feel about a Nick Ward situation? I remember a lot of yelling at Nick Ward.
You want Ward and Sutan on the floor?
I'm thinking guys that spent time in the doghouse.
You can't put Draymond
there? I don't remember Izzo yelling at Draymond a whole lot. I watched basically every game of Draymond's career, and it never really stuck out at me.
Do you have Gabe Brown on this list somewhere yet?
I was going to say, you got to have the guys that he made national news for the
hitting
doghouse.
Physically
So
hitting.
Gabe
you got
Brown
Aaron
is
Henry
on
at
there.
the 3 then, right?
Aaron Henry is on there. Can we have both of those guys as
Why not?
wins?
Yeah, you could do that. You can slide him around a little bit. I think that's
But you want to win. Aaron Henry, you win with. Gabe Brown, you don't.
Yeah, but like you want to talk doghouse. Those guys are doghouse.
You got to be in the doghouse, and you want to win with this team. Who's your 2? You've got a great squad so far. Give me a good 2.
It's hard for me to think of a shooting guard that spent a lot of time in the doghouse, like that I still want on the team. I don't know.
Surely there's someone who didn't guard that picked it up later on.
Akins doesn't get yelled at a lot. Langford never really got yelled at. Bryn Forbes?
Should have been
Trice?
yelled at more.
Trice?
But he's got to be a senior.
Yeah.
He's got to be a senior.
But that one's tough. He definitely never yelled at Gary Harris. I don't remember that at all. I don't know. One of those guys. I think you want to have Aaron Henry and Gabe Brown on the team, though. Those are ultimate doghouse dudes. Anyone that I'm missing? Anyone that you guys really remember Izzo getting into it with that hasn't been mentioned yet?
No, that's pretty good.
Maybe Kalen Lucas should be the point guard above Appling, because he used to give it to Kalen Lucas pretty good from what I remember.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Lucius was a 2, right?
Oh yeah, that's ultimate. There it is. Corey Lucius is getting a lot of mentions on this podcast over the last several weeks, and that is your 2 for sure. The ultimate doghouse. Where was Chris Allen in all of this? We could just talk about guys dismissed from the team. You could create a whole team of guys that were dismissed. Anyway, well done, Kate. Well done, you. Next up, and because I said well done, you, I'm going to give this one to Plum. Inspired by the thought exercise in my other question this week, does Izzo simply like guards as a position group best? I found it much easier to think of front court players, and I think we just lived this on his shit list, and he just refuses to recruit centers, but rarely has less than 3 point guards on the roster.
I mean, I think
still
that
no
has
centers
to be,
in the pipeline, by the way.
It doesn't need them. We don't need them. We've proven that we are a championship winning program. He has 4 rings in the last 5 years without a center. So that's what I believe. And my truth is real to me.
Yeah. Yep. That's correct.
I think that's right. I don't know. I mean, he doesn't. I don't know if I'm not sure that this proves, Kate, that he loves them or that maybe he doesn't think about them as often. I mean, I think he maybe takes the guard position for granted and just assumes everyone can play guard and doesn't think anyone can play center and thus doesn't invest in it, and then spends all of his time being angry at his power forwards who just simply can't do anything to his expectation. So I'm not sure that proves that he likes them the most. I think he's probably just the most milquetoast on them.
I'm going to stick with you on this one because our friend Beth Amaro is here, who asks, Maui Invitational tickets went on sale. 3-day passes are $1,200. Will this team be worth it? And if you had $1,200 in your pocket right now, what would you spend it on?
Beth, I would obviously be spending it on a trip to Maui. Listen, the great thing about this is to see Beth. Yes, Beth. Yes, Jason and I are happy to stay with you, Beth. I know, of course. You've already mentioned this to me privately in the DM. Giving me your address was a little bit presumptive, but I received it and I did save it on my phone. So yes, we will be there. And I will, this podcast has been making a lot of money. We don't like to talk about it, but we are doing well. So I'll just dip into some of the savings I've been laying aside from all of our sponsor money. And I'll just buy the Maui pass. That'll be great. 3 days.
Is there a J-Dub?
That's nothing.
Is there a J-Dub in Maui?
Let's look it up. There's got to be a JW Marriott in Maui, and if there isn't, I'm upset already. There is. No, not JW. So that's okay.
Is there a Kimpton?
It's okay.
For the free happy hour?
Probably. There is a Marriott. There is a Marriott. There are actually several, I think, but there is no J-Dub there. So, but don't worry, Beth. Beth, listen, Beth, there's nothing that JW Marriott cannot hold a candle to Beth Amaro's B&B, and I think that's the best part of all of this. This is what the Spartan Network is about, the Can't Read, Can't Write listener network.
I got something for you on this, Beth. Maui Invitational, I believe MSU can only participate in it every 4 years. And if I had $1,200, I would bet that Tom Izzo isn't the head coach the next time they go to Maui.
Wow.
That's where I would put that money. So this might be your last chance to see Tom Izzo in your state. Let me ask you, Beth, what is that worth?
There it is. That's a fair
Next
question.
up from Thomas, is there any more, or is there more than one kind of football weather? Jonesy.
Yeah. No, there's not. There's only one kind of football weather, and it's a beautiful day for football. That's it.
And are they all beautiful days for football, Mike Jones?
They're all beautiful days for football. They're all days you should stay in the stadium. I'll say that, students. But otherwise, Thomas, like, if we're being honest, yes. And it's whatever day Saturday is. Like, I don't, this isn't complicated. It's
okay. Good answers.
Next up, Thomas wants to know, Greg, will Plum be back this week so someone recognizes my bits about Spanish soccer? To be fair, my question last week wasn't clearest on that. LOL.
I'm going to have to go into the archives here. I did listen last week, so I don't know. No, I didn't. I never do.
Of course not.
I never do. I don't. I can only stand the sound of my own voice. So if I can't hear it, what's the point, Yeah. That's how that works.
I like that we just totally missed this entirely. Whatever it was, and I have no memory of it.
I'm gonna look it up. I'll look it up.
I'll be back this week. Thomas, waste of a question.
Wait, Tom, I'm gonna just tell you right now. Don't ask it next week. I will not be here next week. So, or just at me. Just at me, bro. Okay? Just at me.
Next up is Ali. ACL recovery update. My brace is unlocked for full flexion and extension! Exclamation point. What player on the football team do you want to see unlocked to their full potential?
Oh, wow.
We can round robin this, I think. Plum, I'll start with you.
Nate Carter. It's got to be Nate Carter. I need Nate Carter to absolutely lose his mind. If Nate Carter loses his mind, I will lose mine. So that's all I need.
Grooch.
Obvious answer to me on this is Darius Snow. Keeping with the injury theme. Jonesy.
I love that. I'm going to go with Aiden Childs. Like, I'm sorry. If I can get a quarterback who realizes his potential this year, I'm going to take a quarterback who can realize his potential this year. So, next up, Sports Ball Joey. Favorite variant of cocktail, for example, a spicy marg. I've got one on this, but does anyone else have something that comes to mind?
I like a dram of scotch, and I mix it up with a little water.
By the way, do you want a review?
Of the Lagavulin?
Yeah.
You guys are drinking Lagavulin? Son of a bitch.
So Plum, the backstory. I had to drop my son off today. And met the in-laws in Delaware. And in Delaware, the Costco there has a liquor store. So I pop in, and there's a full bulk out of Lagavulin Offerman Edition. And this one is aged in Caribbean rum casks. And it is better than last year's iteration.
You had to get it.
Say that.
Yeah.
Oh, we like it better than the Guinness casks.
No. Better than the charred oak. the Guinness cask is still my favorite.
It was 2
so
years
this is-
ago.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I
this
love that
one is
they're
my favorite.
still living into this Nick Offerman moment. That is great. No, I like the spicy marg. Jason loves the spicy marg. I just like a dirty martini, dirty gin martini. Probably my favorite thing. But of this variant,
I worked in a barbecue Mexican place that had a mezcal paloma that was fantastic with a chili like a chili powder salt rim. Excellent. So a mezcal paloma is my vote.
I'm going to answer Thomas Zambiasi's question from last week. He said, should we be worried about the basketball team's shooting after visiting a Spanish club known for their refusal to play offense? Meaning, he was talking because they were in Madrid. Atletico Madrid is like, I don't know what they're, 4th, 5th in the stacks right now in the Liga. Well behind Real Madrid and Barcelona, because he is right. Atletico Madrid is garbage, refuse to score, and therefore the shooting, the scoring, the Liga, MSU basketball, that's not timely anymore. Okay, you're welcome. Thanks and sorry in advance.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, Alex. Next up from Spartan 1963, Doc Brown just gave you his DeLorean. You can go forward 10 years to see the state of post-Izzo hoops. No guarantee that you'll like it. Or you can go back and relive any season you choose. Which do you pick?
2020, you go back. You go back to 2020, and you just convince the NCAA to have the tournament because it's not going to really matter.
Oh, there you go.
You get in the second ring, and that's the end of it.
If I was going to go back, I would go back to join you all at Ford Field, just so that I could have that experience.
Why not go back to seasons
in
you skipped
2009?
having season tickets?
I mean, yeah, I could do that too. But if I have to pick one, I would rather be there for that moment.
Okay.
But otherwise, I'm probably going to go forward and start becoming a sports bettor. So,
Well done.
If I'm being honest.
Although I will say Spartan 1963 doesn't give us going back from the future in the DeLorean. So that's maybe you go back to become a sports bettor. You know?
Yeah.
Anyway,
This is a question last week
on.
about whether I can live or not. Jerry Bear.
This one's for me.
Yeah, for Greg. Where can one find you this Friday, say 4:20 p.m.?
Okay.
People are asking. And Jer, I have a feeling we'll find one another this Friday, say around 4:20 p.m. And it's actually true. Like let's text this week. Let's hang out. We got to be on campus. So come to the house or I'll meet you there. We'll figure something out. Next up from Jer Bear for Plum, you had one life raft to save one personality trait for the rest of your life. Your options are your mustache, mentioning you're a soccer ref, or MSU Honors College. What is saved?
I love that the mustache is a personality trait, and that mentioning the MSU. I'm more surprised you didn't say that I got into U of M. Also, a core part of my personality. So I'm glad that I'll be able to preserve that, regardless.
So the Honors College is out then.
Honors College is out. We don't fuck the Honors College. Who really cares? Not sure it made any difference in my life. The mustache or soccer ref. I think I can live without the mustache, but I talk so much about being a soccer referee in various ways. It comes up more than it should. Not as often though as I got into U of M. I probably tell that to myself every morning when I wake up.
That's giving those jabronis a lot of validation right now.
Say, that's the worst
really
thing
is.
you could possibly
But that's
say.
what I
That's gonna
love.
get-
That's what I love to do. That's how big of a cuck I am. Is I just want them to know that I know that they're better than me because they went there. So, yeah, it's nice. Next up, Jess Sipperly. Michael, Ari Keon Coleman video naming random NBA players. How much was our social media team sleeping on this gem? And could you go toe to toe with Keon in naming random NBA players?
I didn't see this. What is this?
I didn't either, yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So you know how the NFL teams do this thing where they'll stick a camera with a prompt and the players will run off the field and they'll say a thing.
Right.
So the prompt was something to the effect of like, name a random not star NBA player, right? So Keon just hangs by the camera the entire time that players are coming by and like is going sort of toe to toe with people naming random NBA players. What was striking to me though is that random NBA players were all names that I knew. A lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them. Like Shane Battier. Like I'm like, wait, that was sort of a core person growing up in the league, right? Like, you know,
that's hardly a random NBA player. Shane Battier had a
generationally, I think it's different, right?
Sure.
It's not quite naming Karl Malone, but like, I bet you John Stockton might have passed with them. Anyway, so yeah, Keon, delightful. Keon could have crushed me, absolutely. But how much did we miss out? I think I commented on this as it relates to, I don't know if you saw the video that they got trolled for later on of the Florida State players doing the jig in Ireland before their game. But we missed out on some electric Keon content in Ireland. And I do think that the Mel Tucker brand binder did not let Keon be Keon with the press. I also don't know. Keon was, you have to appreciate, a couple years younger at formative times in his life. Like, he's delightful. He clearly, I think, has a good sense of keeping it in the appropriate realm. I get the sense he's probably actually a nice young man for the most part in terms of like his manners and wouldn't do something outrageous publicly like that. But I don't know. We missed out on Keon though. I'm enjoying him on the Bills. He makes good content. So
I think Jess probably remembers us from our time at that age, and she knows that we were three fully formed, fully actualized human beings.
Yes.
The exact same as the podcast host that you see now. No rough edges at all to be sanded off, but probably not the same to be said for Keon Coleman or all the rest of the guys.
Didn't give me a tour of Rick's as it relates to milestones in your relationship. That's a thing that didn't happen.
Again, that's
powerful,
fully formed, fully actualized.
Powerful reminiscence.
This is where I proposed.
Moving on. Next up from
Mom,
Monopoly.
I see you in the chat, by the way.
Yes. Next up from Monopoly. Why am I not looking forward to game day anymore? Oh yeah, now I remember. Speaking of things that happened in Ireland, I'm thinking that the reference she's making there made quite the splash in his fully matured, fully actualized form over there on air.
What's wild is having Saban next to him. That's the part of this that is just the cognitive dissonance of.
Do you want to expand for anyone that's not chronically online?
Yeah,
or watching ESPN?
Pat McAfee, who I think we all agreed was kind of a piece of shit to begin with, but goes to Ireland and gets hammered on air. And when I say hammered, I mean threw up and then reintroduced himself to someone he'd been talking to for 10 minutes, hammered. Like,
recall, listeners, on certain radio stations in Detroit, that's enough to get Braylon Edwards fired. But like apparently Pat McAfee, it's fine.
Yeah,
continue.
For the Mickey Mouse Corporation that just laid off some folks. But yeah, so he's there getting absolutely trashed next to Nick Saban, who's trying to have like a normal conversation. I don't know. I didn't think he was great to begin with. Who am I to judge someone getting wasted?
Yeah, this is a little bit of a glass house situation that we're in. we're in right now.
So I'm going to take a pull on my cinnamon whiskey here, but also tell you that I don't work for ESPN and that me being on this podcast didn't result in lots of people losing their jobs. So if you all would like to drain your bank accounts and Venmo me, then fine. But otherwise, like, fuck Pat McAfee. He should be a professional. And also, he was a fucking kicker.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really? For that guy? But yeah, game day sucks. Desmond's still there and will continue to suck.
There's a reason that Fox Noon Tailgate is taking over listeners. That's for sure. And the mouse hasn't found the answer to that. Finally, from Monopoly Plum, I get that you talk about football, basketball, and one day when you know a hockey specialist, then you'll get them on the show to talk hockey. But what about tennis? How excited are you for Matthew Forbes, the first player in green and white as a college student to make the draw for the U.S. Open?
Yeah, we're excited for Matt Forbes. This is soon to be a tennis podcast. Listen, if we don't win against the Owls, I will be boycotting it until we get Matthew Forbes himself onto the podcast, which should be relatively easy to do, I should assume. So and then we won't need a tennis expert. We'll just have Matt do it. And he probably listens to us already.
I love that we're at recording time 1 hour and 52 minutes right now. And my favorite question is, why don't you talk more about...
Yeah, that's right. But that is par for the course. So that's...
Wrong metaphor.
Oops. Par
volley?
For that. That's volley. That's
volley
ace
for the
serve.
Ace
for the serve.
That's good.
That's ace for the serve.
Right.
Next up, Beppe Plum. Please rate via Jonesy's preferred criteria. I guess, Kevin, I'm going to ask you to do this. Channeling your inner Michael Jones.
Well, I gave the criteria, and then Kevin has to rank, I think is what this is asking.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I don't know then. A is Boston Cream or Massacre. B is Cleveland Cavs or Steamer. C is Columbo with a Stash or Colombian Necktie. And 4 is His Posts or Post-Apocalyptic Earth.
Well, I know Jonesy, prefers the Massacre in Boston. Thinks that those guys had it coming. Nope, that's not about you. Of course, we all know deeply prefer the Cleveland Steamer. There is no question about that. Then the Columbia Necktie is a little distasteful, even for Michael Jones. So he'll go with the Stash on that one. And then, of course, Beppe, he'll always take your posts. He loves your posts almost as much as he loves the Cleveland Steamer. Next up from Beppe Plum, Johnson City, Tennessee is 24.17 miles closer to Windsor than it is to Memphis. Also, Baila. 2 foreign language drops in one word. Great. Shouldn't have taken this question. It means dance in Spanish, but gay in whatever this other language is.
Gujarati in Gujarati.
Do you know what Gujarati is, Plum?
Gujarati is a language spoken by millions of people that live in India. Yes. It's one of India's
very good.
I've never heard
languages.
of it. That's not true.
Okay.
My Indian boy has laughed at me a lot for that one. Now you know Twofer.
Twofer. I did not know that. Baila Mo, let the music take you over. So that's an Enrique Iglesias, I believe, and that's dance. But I did not know it meant gay in Gujarati. So that's lovely. That's great. Also, I don't know what it means that Beppe Plum has an Indian boy.
That feels
that has
not okay to
stuck
say
out to me as well.
I have a lot of questions, Beppe, about what that means, and I'm drawing a lot of conclusions, and I don't want any of them to be illegal. So please clarify.
As I was reading it, I was like,
soon.
what am I party to now all of a sudden?
It's a now you know
What
3
have you
for
done?
you know what I mean. All right, next
I'm
up,
vote no on that one.
Ray Raymond Chains asks, were local journalists and podcasters able to actually watch MSU's games in Spain? Were they talking out of their butts and repeating what others said? Present podcasters obviously excluded.
Obviously.
Also, I'd appreciate links where I could watch clips of the second and third game. Raymond, I don't think any such clips exist. We were reading the box scores to you for the most part. So, like, and
I was ignoring my mother's birthday to watch it on Instagram for you, Raymond. show very little appreciation for me ignoring my mother's birthday to watch for you, which is mostly a bit. I think we've been pretty transparent about like how difficult it is to actually know what happened in these games, right? That we're mostly going off box score and what we've heard, reactions, that kind of stuff.
I would ask yourself, does the podcaster seem like their entire life revolves around MSU sports, no, more specifically MSU basketball, in which case they probably did watch. So there's a handful of those podcasts that do exist.
Very good. Number 2 from Ray Raymond. Grooch, if you could reach through your television and crush the testicles of an underperforming athlete, which athlete would have their crushed testicles?
This is for Plum. Plum, answer your own question.
Fine. I'll answer the question. It's Max Christie. He wouldn't have any testicles. He'd have no testicles. He'd have dust inside of his ball sack. That's what he would have, and he'd still have it because he's still underperforming as he plays for the Lakers with his insane contract. Damn him all to hell for what he didn't do for us. Last up, Grooch, after having watched the Olympics, do you feel confident that you could have danced for the MSU breakdance team?
Well, Jonesy, you'll remember from when I walked you around Rick's that there was a spot on the dance floor where I did my trial run for the U.S. Olympics breakdancing team, and Ray Gunn beat me. She got me. She boomed me. She's so good. She got me at Rick's, and there's thank you, Raymond, for twisting the knife on that one. I appreciate it. Next up from the Upper Deck Jerk guy.
Has this podcast discussed that poor woman?
No.
Wait, are we calling her a poor woman?
I mean,
what's happened to her is unfortunate.
It's the woman has a PhD in dance, which is, the whole thing is very confusing and it's regrettable.
Are we sure who judged the qualifying portion of that to get into the Olympics?
Listen, everything that I've read, and I've done a lot of digging on this because I am so confused on how she even got there, does imply that this, in fact, was a neutral process convened by Australia's Dance Federation, whatever the fuck that means. So,
and she didn't have a partner on that judging.
Nope. That's been disproved.
Right.
That has been disproved.
Okay. Yep. I'm glad you've sorted that out for me. I refuse to believe then that look, it's a colony of convicts. That's what you need to know about Australia.
Very good.
So
very good.
And finally, from the Upper Deck Jerk guy, Jonesy, what's Gabe Brown up to?
He's playing in Italy on the LBA Serie A team, and he most recently, had 11 points, 5 rebounds, and 1 assist. Though before that, he had 2 points, 1 rebound, and 0 assists. So that tracks for Gabe Brown.
But even most recently, he's just been announced as being added to the Izzo All Doghouse team. So we're excited for him to be coming back to East Lansing to
next up. Goodness. Plum, this is definitely not for you. So Greg, I'll pass this to you. Why don't you guys look at the camera? When you don't look, it looks unprofessional and like you're hiding something.
Yes, and I'm the one in fucking help me. I've been kidnapped in an LGBTQ shirt.
We're too bashful to look you in the eye, Upper Deck Jerk guy. You're just too masculine. You have too much of an aura. We have to look down and to the side because we're such betas over here. And that's why we don't look at the camera. And finally, from the Upper Deck Jerk guy, how long until Smith passes D'Antonio as the second best coach in Spartan football history?
Who's first?
Duffy, I guess is what that means.
Right? Why?
He won championships.
National championship, it turns out.
Yeah, but it is. We can all agree that some of those championships, right? We can talk about it, right?
No, we're not talking about any of them. The one we
tell
have.
Us about what?
Fucking knave!
Yeah.
How dare you?
What are we talking about, Michael? Let me lean in and look at the camera while you regale us with this.
I think at least one of those, they didn't even win the Big Ten.
All right. Anyway, the answer to this is, I don't know, 10 years? Does he need probably more than 10? 8 years? Could he do it in 8?
I don't think they were entirely in the Big Ten at the time of Duffy.
No. He just has to beat D'Antonio. I'm not countenancing this.
We can
The
get into
answer
this
is
Duffy
8
thing.
years.
Also, by the way, even if look, if we can pile on Michigan for their nonsense back then I think we should at least look in the mirror as it relates to our own history.
Oh, I will not be looking in any mirrors. Absolutely not.
And for what D'Antonio accomplished in the era in which he accomplished it, it was way harder.
Okay. So I guess we're just trying to give Mike
Say it.
Antonio his plaudits. That's good.
Okay. They were in the Big Ten each one of the years, and they won the Big Ten in both 66 and 65, which are the years that I see most frequently referenced as national championship years.
So I'm thinking of the ones in the 50s then.
Yes.
There was 55 where it looks like maybe they finished second in the Big Ten with a loss to...
No one needs to do this right now.
State.
Either way,
This is horrible.
it doesn't really matter. The point is that I'm Duffy's fantastic for a great number of reasons, not the least of which is being a progressive as it relates to black people being able to play in major college sports. But I'm going to go ahead and
Very well.
Mark Antonio. Anyway, gentlemen, this is the kind of fight we want to have right before kickoff. So with that, hoo-hoo, go green.
Go white.
Go White!